who would have been in a position to help, teachers, pediatricians, those types of things are all closed now. So
What? Hello, ladies. Hola, Lourdes. Hola, Dorothy. No se oye. Creo
Hola,
que-
hola.
Ah, sí, hola.
Sorry.
¿Qué pasó?
Creo que están conectando todo.
Ah, ok.
Son 100 personas.
Wow. Lourdes, ¿tú nos oyes?
Sí, ya me
ok.
conecté. Es que, ay, no sé, hoy así pasa, ¿eh? De repente.
Sí, entiendo.
Bueno, ya estamos aquí.
¿Pero ustedes me ven?
No,
No, Jimena.
¿Qué pasó? No sé cómo, a ver. Ah, ok. Ya, ahí, ¿no?
Ok.
Sí.
Estoy quitando aquí cantidad de mugres que estaba trabajando.
Hi, Davida.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. How are you doing?
Bueno, ya
Fine, and
estamos
you?
aquí.
¿Pero ustedes me ven?
So just a quick note, artists and panelists,
¿Cómo? A ver.
we are already live.
Ya, ahí, ¿no?
Ok.
I'm hearing an echo.
Estoy quitando aquí cantidad de mugres que estaba trabajando.
Yeah, it's because
Hi,
I
Davida.
have both my computers. Hey,
Hello.
Marietta.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Bueno, ya estamos
It's because of
¿Pero
you.
ustedes me ven?
Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm excited for this. So I think we've ran through the program. You all have a good sense of what we're doing, right? So Carlos will start with an intro, and then we'll move into the curator walkthrough, and then you can see I put together a little presentation with a closer look at your patchworks. So we'll start the panel around 4:30, and then have a Q&A session.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so I think we're all set, and it's like just a few minutes before 4, so I'm gonna go ahead and start admitting people to the room right at 4. Carlos will start, and I'll go ahead and have the presentation moment, and then when Carlos starts his intro, I'll take that off, and we'll start the virtual gallery presentation.
And everyone, just so you know, we are live, so this is being broadcasted right now.
Okay, great.
Okay, I'm about to make it active.
Okay.
There we go. That looks great. There we go.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start letting our guests into the room.
Okay. Sí te veo. Sí, sí te veo. Para que te diga algo. No. Right now out so that they don't focus on all the movement back behind. Ya estamos vivos.
Hola a todos.
Hola,
Hola, ¿qué pasó? Bien.
Mariana.
No me veo, pero está bien.
Vemos.
Ok.
Estamos vivo.
Bien, ya veo.
Ah, ok.
Hello.
¿Ya?
Oh,
Hey, Judy.
Hey, are you there? Marietta. Hello. How exciting.
Exciting. All we need is popcorn.
All we need is stable internet connections for an hour, right?
Yeah.
Are you at your house?
Yes, I'm at my house and I think we're live, Carlos says.
Yeah, and Carlos said we're live. We're also going to be live because we're filled. We have over a capacity. Hello, Marianne.
Hi, Judith. How are you? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Well,
Judy, let me present you to Jimena Lourdes and Dorothy. I don't know where she went, but you're there.
Hello.
Here.
Okay.
Hola a todas. Hi, everybody.
hola, Yolanda.
Hola,
Hola.
Marietta, Jimena,
There's
Lourdes.
more women
hola.
coming on now. I Sandra, Alessandra, I see everybody. Bianca.
Nice to see you.
So
Uh,
it's coming.
Lizette.
Hola, ¿cómo están?
hello,
Bien.
Elizabeth. Hello, nice to meet you.
Hola, hola, hello.
Hola.
Hola. Hi, great to see you. Hola, Lizette, ¿cómo estás? No veo a todas,
These
pero
are all the artists coming on, Judy.
Wonderful.
Judy Baca es la fundadora de Spark, la organización que nos invitó.
Ah, qué
Hi,
padre.
Judith.
Mucho gusto. Nice to meet you.
Nice to
Judy.
meet
Very
you.
nice to meet you.
Alessandra Moctezuma is supposed to come on. It's Alessandra and the president of our board, Zohelia. There she is. And they're amongst the artists.
Hola. Hola, Alessandra.
Hola.
Hola, hola.
Ah, Karen.
Hola, ¿cómo están?
Wow.
There we are. This is a new thing.
Let's see where our hostess is.
I think she's getting everybody on.
Where is everybody? Be interesting to know where they're all coming from. Where are you all?
Yeah.
Mexico City.
Mexico City.
Ajá.
Uh-huh.
Mexico City.
Where else?
Tucson, Arizona. Mexico City to here. Yolanda.
Right.
Nice to meet you.
I'm from Brazil, São Paulo.
Ah,
Where are you from? I didn't hear you.
São Paulo, Brasil.
Oh,
Brazil.
wow, it's like you're around the corner.
Ajá.
Hi, Claire. I see you, Claire Parks.
Yes, Marietta. It's been a little while, but I'm anxious to hear about your project in this slightly personal way.
I'm in Venice, California.
Okay.
I'm in LA visiting my father, but I live closer to San Francisco.
I think Claire's in Tucson.
I am in Tucson.
Is Carlos?
I think we're almost all here. Davida's still admitting more RSVPs. And we have a live stream happening. So at sparkandalay.org/patchwork. So if there's anybody who couldn't get in, you're welcome to share the link. We are live currently. So know that the world is watching.
Great. This is kind of scary.
Hola, Marietta.
Hola.
Marta. Hi.
Hello, Marta. How are you?
Good. Aquí ansiosa de verlo.
I see another artist.
Maxine Foster.
Yes. Hi, Maxine. How are you?
Fine. I live in Durham, North Carolina.
Wow. People are from everywhere.
yes.
There are some people who have the microphones are, we can't hear them, no? Or I don't know.
They're muted. So I think they're muted because they can't be on when we're on. Jimena?
Es que se ven los micrófonos en rojo en algunas de las personas.
That's normal.
That's
so
normal.
We'll ask everyone to mute their microphones when we begin.
Okay. Es que I'm not very good in these Zoom meetings.
And our technical person, Davida, is muting and going through.
We're going to have to learn how to really do this well for a while.
So we are going.
I believe we're going to get started. If you could please mute your microphone. That's a little button on the bottom left if you haven't already done so. And we'll get started with the introductions. So hi everyone, welcome to the opening of the Patchwork Healing Blanket, an exhibition that features textile artworks by women and children in 10 countries, speaking out against gender-based violence and the destruction of Mother Earth, curated by Marietta Bernstorff. My name is Carlos Rogel, and I am the Executive Director of SPARK, the Social and Public Art Resource Center. For those of you who may be new to SPARK, we are a public art organization founded in 1976, and for the past 44 years, we have worked on the production and preservation of murals in Los Angeles and internationally, and the presentation of socially engaged exhibitions and programs. Today, we are pleased to welcome you to our first virtual gallery opening with a tour by curator Marietta Bernstoff and a panel discussion with artists Lourdes Almeida, Jimena Cancino, Mariana Sadowski, and Dorothy Thursby. We will open the forum for questions and answers after the panel discussions, but please feel free to put your thoughts and questions in the chat throughout the event. You'll see that little chat button on the bottom of your screen. The Zoom presentation is being recorded on the speaker's view. So please feel free to turn off your cameras if you're asking a Zoom question and would prefer to not be recorded. And you can do that on the bottom left. I have the pleasure of introducing Marietta Bernstorff, the founder, director of Patchwork Healing Blankets, La Manta de Curación, and the curator of this exhibition. Marietta has curated over 35 exhibitions in the United States and Mexico, including at Spark. Her work builds bridges so that people can communicate through the arts on important issues that we face today, locally and globally. And I understand that we have international visitors from Latin America, so I also will attempt to read this in Spanish. So, hola a todos, bienvenidos a la inauguración de The Patchwork Healing Blanket, una exhibición que presenta obras de arte textiles de mujeres y niños de 10 países que se pronuncian contra la violencia del género y la destrucción de la madre tierra, curada por Marietta Bernstorff. Mi nombre es Carlos Rogel y soy el director ejecutivo del Centro de Recursos de Arte Público y Social, SPARK. Para aquellos de ustedes que son nuevos a SPARK, somos una organización de arte público fundada en 1976 y durante los últimos 44 años hemos trabajado en la producción y preservación de murales en Los Ángeles y internacionalmente, y la presentación de exhibiciones socialmente comprometidas y programas de educación de arte. Hoy nos da mucho gusto venir a la inauguración de nuestra primera galería virtual con un recorrido por la curadora Marietta Bernstoff y un panel de discusión con las artistas Lourdes Almeida, Jimena Cancino, Mariana Sadowski y Dorothy Thursby. Tengo el placer de presentar a Marietta Bernstorff, fundadora y directora de Patchwork Healing Blanket, La Manta de Curación, y curadora de esta exhibición. Marietta ha curado más de 35 exhibiciones en los Estados Unidos y México, incluso en Spark. Su trabajo construye puentes para que las personas puedan comunicarse a través de las artes sobre temas importantes que enfrentamos hoy en nivel local y global. And without further ado, let's welcome Marietta.
Thank you all for coming virtually to this amazing first gathering for me and for many of us to this Patchwork Healing Blanket exhibition at Spark. I'd like to first thank all the women who are participating in their works here. I'd also like to mention that this is a virtual exhibition that we did not have in mind when we first started talking with Judy Baca. We were actually going to be in Los Angeles at this time, but so not all the pieces will be able to see in the virtual exhibition, but we hope to have it up and running and being able to see more of the 500 pieces in the future. There is also like to thank the tremendous effort that was given to me during this time by Antonio Turok and Anais Turok, my family, who without them I couldn't have done anything digitally, I can tell you that. I'd like to thank all the Spark group for being supportive and working in this process and helping me through it and dealing with these issues of technical and virtual concepts. And I'd very much like to thank my dear friend, longtime friend, and a big fan of hers all my career, Judy Baca, who was the promoter in my career of really looking at work through social means and has taught me a lot. So I'm always glad to do something with Spark. It's one of the most important centers, 40 years in the making by 3 very powerful women who founded it. So we're in a good place as all women situation. This was founded by women, Judy, Donna, and I'm missing the last name there. And so all these women who put this together, I'm very proud to be back here at Spark, even if it's in a virtual. I'd like to be there in Los Angeles, but we're happy to have you see one of the most important exhibits. I think that all these women have done, really, the work that they've done is amazing. So we'll start when you're ready, Carlos.
We'll begin in a second.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Las que quieren que yo hable en español o quieren preguntas, solo lo escribes y yo te comento o les comento. Agradecimiento a todas las mujeres, lo primero que dije, que participaron. Y decir que no todas las piezas se van a poder ver en esta exhibición virtual por el tamaño del espacio que nos dan.
Okay, I believe we're in.
Okay, so I'm taking you through the beginning just to show you here some of the work. This was in the making of and at the first event that we had in the Zocalo. Have to understand that this project was running pretty much close to the pandemic, let's say. We were started last year, and by this year in January, we presented on the 26th of January in the Zocalo in the main plaza of Mexico City downtown. But it was a tremendous effort by so many women who were so resourceful and helper. Lourdes Almeida, which is one of our major teachers in this whole textile issue. But we also had great help by the Casa del Tiempo, which was the organization that sponsored us while we were in Mexico City. Cynthia Martinez and all her staff and the University Metropolitana were very important in this first process. So what you're looking at here is some images of all the women that were there that day. We had a gathering and showing of the work that was laid out for people to see. We also called upon healers, of which you'll meet some healers if you continue with the Spark workshop. There will be one with Sandra Pacheco, who's also on with us today. There were healers invited, and there were healing rooms. There were a lot of things that were placed around so that people could sew their pieces. And we had a lot of classes by the university who did works on feminism and also on law issues and things that the women were interested in hearing, or students at the time. It was an amazing day that we were all moved by, and we're hoping someday to do the exact same thing at Spark Live, in real person, I guess you could say. Do you want to just, I'm following you, Carlos.
Just let me know where you want to go.
Yeah. So we're just, we're going through the whole, I think we should just go through it so you can see. I'd like to talk about this second mural. There's a piece there that you're looking at, the one in the middle on the upper hand corner. There's a code bar that you guys can use your phone if you're good at that. These young women from Mexico City put this together. They're from the university. They placed a code bar on the patchwork. It's all embroidered. They placed a code bar so that you could use that. And the information to all that that they have is to help women that they've formed. I mean, these girls are amazing. This is the new generation of young women who are dealing with all the issues right now and have made creative ways to do that. The piece is called The Coven. And one of the things that you'll see throughout all the artwork, all the blankets, is the tremendous ability of craftsmanship and embroidery, and some are printed on, some are painted. Whatever the women wanted to do, we that was able to use on cloth and be able to travel with us, we accepted the pieces. So this one in particular, it's a real great pleasure to have these young girls with us, but the ability of what a new generation is doing and helping their fellow females. We can go on. Go on if you like. The other pieces in the patchwork are from Germany, Mexico, and numerous other places. We're going on to this next one. Yeah. These are pieces. Some of you might recognize your pieces in here. Some of you might not. The funny thing about doing this huge project was that everyone was supposed to send their name with a photo and everything so that we would know who the pieces belonged to. I realized that when we started thinking about this virtual thing, I had to find all these names of the 600 or so women, which some did not send in emails. So some of the pieces we do have your name, some of them will not have your names if it hasn't been sent in. But the pieces are all amazing. This piece, which Lourdes Almeida's piece is at the top, Basta, which is her as a young child, and numerous other women who participated from different parts, Canada, Mexico, like I said, Los Angeles, I think there's pieces in here. So this is an actual piece. And when I say that, it means that it's sewn and it looks like the way it is. It's very large pieces. And there are some that we did for this exhibit that are virtual blankets. That is, that they don't really exist yet. If you like, we can continue. I think this is just one of the amazing things to look at when you're seeing all these works. Here we have another piece that's has numerous women from San Francisco, I think from, I can't remember all the names, there's too many for me to remember, but there I know that Mariana Zadowski worked with a lot of people, and that be Mariana's piece. A couple of the other girls, feel free to jump in if you're around. There's Germany here. I'm looking at some, Indiana, California, and Cancun and Chiapas. The one in the middle is a young girl who was actually her first presentation. She's a young girl that was affected by violence as a child. And she wanted to be part of this thing. And that's what we're seeing in most of these pieces. We're seeing that by the stories, I had the time to read them all and hear some of, see what they were talking about. It's amazing to me how all these women, without knowing each other and without understanding who each other is, have come together on certain items that are very important. One of the most important that they're all talking about and dealing with is healing themselves and forgiving. So I think that's a very interesting bond that we're all having, that the project was done for healing issues for all women who have faced violence, but also to think that none of us really know one another. I've never seen half the people that participated. And so it's been a really interesting and pleasure to look at all these works. The next body of work is women photographers in Mexico City who came together to do the piece. Mexico has one of the largest groups of women photographers. There's a group of 500 in just one group of women. It's been influenced a lot by Graciela Iturbide, Mariana Yampolsky, and many other women who've gone before them. But what's interesting about the group is that they all have been working on a lot of projects that deal with violence. So we've taken this as a real interesting process of how women have become the documentary photographers to a lot of these issues, like Lisbeth's work at the top, which is Mujer, woman, 19 years of age, due to all in the morgue. The violence is tremendous in Mexico. This is why we started the project. It's 10 women a day that's killed. And it has increased since we've been in quarantine. It hasn't decreased. But this is not a problem alone to Mexico. It has become a problem to the world. So the project is really based on all of us joining together and making a great effort to stop this violence against women. And the way we've decided to do it here is that the more patchworks that come into the project, the bigger the project, and the more noise we make for other people to join in, but also for the governments and of the world to really take notice on this pandemic, because it is a pandemic by the United Nations. It's a silent pandemic, as they call it, or a shadow pandemic. And we know for a fact that in the last 4 months, just in Mexico alone, there's been 987 women killed. 308 of those are femicides. The next blanket is one of the blankets that we first started with the class in Casa del Tiempo. The professor, Iván Ortiz, who was teaching a lot of the women, her class was all these women, they began to make pieces. And this is the piece that really started us off and began to really get us to think about how we were going to do these pieces. And it wasn't until Lourdes came in and kind of gave us an idea of the structure of cloth, because not all of us are sewing gals. We began to see that they had to become, we had to unite them. And so what I did was curate a lot of the pieces as groups so that what people could see that thematically or visually in color, depending on what was going on. So most of these have been curated so that you can understand how the concept of all of them are working on. There is one artist here who's from Tijuana, and the rest are from Mexico City. And Lourdes' piece is in the center as well. She'll be talking about her work in the panel. But the migrant piece, which is the girl in the right-hand side, is pretty fascinating. Of La mujer migrante solo deja su casa por condiciones extremas. The migrant woman only leaves her house due to extreme conditions. And I think that's something that is one of the themes that's very powerful in this patchwork that keeps coming out, which is all the mothers and children that are in migration around the world, especially the south and the northern border of Mexico, which we've been dealing with a lot lately, and the tragic situation in the United States with the children who are taken away from their mothers. This is one of the big issues of violence that some women in these groups are dealing with in their pieces. Okay, we can go to the next one. Is pretty amazing if you have a chance to really look at that on another time. This is embroidered completely, pretty much. Women from Mexico City, from El Faro del Norte, Faro del Oriente, or Faro, not sure which one of those, but they are amazing weavers and embroiderers. And they did it in group form. So there was like 4 or 5 women together who were embroidering these pieces. And you can see the level of capacity. Faro de Tláhuac is the organization. You can see in the upper hand corner. And then the smaller piece on the right hand is a woman from San Cristóbal de las Casas. So these pieces, every time I see any of these blankets, I'm moved by the ability, like I said, that they all have. And some of us are jealous at the possibility of the embroidery level that some of these women have, which takes a long time and which is marvelous. And one of the things that we're looking at and we're seeing is retaking or taking back the textile world that's passed on to us by generation of women throughout millennia, that we are now taking back and showing the force that it has when it comes to contemporary art, or in general art as we're using it here is socially based. It's a very powerful tool that we had long forgotten or were punished to use in some cases, or just not accepted in others. And we continue through there. These two marvelous pieces as well that are, we have on the left-hand side, or my left-hand side would be, we have Marcela Tawada, Amalia, Lisbeth again, and some a woman from Germany. There's so many. I don't have a list for them all right now, but they are, when you click onto the name, look at the piece, you can click onto the piece and you'll see all the artists who participated and see some of their texts that they're having. Again, this is receiving tons of patchworks during the course of 2 or 3 months and beginning to put them together and begin to sew and come out with the quality that it has here that you're looking at. This is Dorothy's piece, who will be on the panel right in the middle, one of the beautiful pieces that she did. There's Adriana Calatayud at the top. The ones that I know, I can barely say, know who's here. So if there's quite, here we have some really important, powerful patchwork works that were being done, not only in Mexico, but in the United States and in Canada. This next body of work is a very powerful group of 100 patchworks done by children from an elementary school. The text describes it, that's written by Diana Munoz from Oaxaca, who's a journalist, put together this project really. She got together with a friend who's a teacher, art teacher at one of the elementary schools that teaches in a girls' elementary school. And there the psychologist and the art teacher began to talk about violence and what was happening. The young girls drew and painted, and a lot of them have lived these experiences. They also, many of these pieces are in their language of Zapotec from the region, and they have their traditional outfits on. The colors are very common to this area. But when you see these pieces and they begin to tell you, don't touch me, respect me, or woman, respect yourself, it's a very powerful, because these are little girls that are, as you can see from the photos that we're going to be looking at here to the right. These are all the little girls at that school. That was all put together by Diana. We're so grateful for her work that she did on this piece. And this is one of the areas that women are mostly being killed in the zone of Oaxaca. There's a huge amount of femicides in Oaxaca, and the coast is one of the worst places for that. So it was a very important tool. And you can see that one little girl used her school shirt to draw on and paint on. And it says, I am not anyone's property. Again, you can come back and read the wonderful text that Deanna wrote about the project. In the exhibition, we also have videos of different artists. So it's worth seeing. Carmen's video is beautiful of her, the making of her embroidery. These, and here are two of the pieces that we're looking at that are, again, her heart is the one that's right in the middle of the larger blanket. And she, in the video, it describes what happens when she makes this piece and what it meant to her and how the influence of her mother. That's another theme that we keep seeing in all these pieces, the amount of passing down through generations of knowledge, one woman to another. There are numerous pieces in this exhibit that were done as a collective effort between families. Let's say there's an 8-year-old and her mother, her aunt, and her grandmother. So that what range of ages in this exhibit goes from 8 to 85. There are women who did it in groups, women who did it individually. There are schools that participated, universities that participated. So we have an array of different messages, but together, what's the beauty of them is that when they come together as a whole, like you're seeing, they become extremely powerful and they get the message across about violence. And this,
Empecé a delinear mi corazón que tracé previamente con marcador permanente. Lo voy a hacer la técnica de cordoncillo para resaltar los bordes, utilizando diferentes colores con hilaza. Y posteriormente voy a rellenar algunas partes del corazón, no todas, porque pretendo utilizar la técnica de patchwork, por la cual ustedes están convocando. Y bueno, esta técnica de cordoncillo mi madre me la enseñó cuando era niña. A pesar de que no suelo bordar mucho, últimamente es cuando he empezado a retomar esa actividad y pues nunca se me olvidó. Es una técnica que me gusta mucho, la disfruto y voy a utilizar la técnica del patchwork en algunas partes del corazón, porque cuando yo supe de esta convocatoria me conmovió mucho saber por qué se estaba convocando para combatir la violencia.
Here, one of the things that's also interesting in some of these videos, we asked the women, one would ask, how did you go about getting, but all these women came up with their own ideas, as we're seeing, from different concepts and different materials, and also documented it. We asked for them to do a video, take photographs of their pieces, and so those that we have available, we're showing them now. But they all use different methods, and we're looking at some of the most just gorgeous pieces, like on the left-hand side, the Dove, which is Monica Machon, who's from London at the moment, and Lena Barlett, who's US, Mexico, San Miguel, who was very encouraging with a whole bunch of other women she organized and brought together, like Never Again is part of her group, also women from San Miguel Allende. Judy Ross, a longtime professor of the arts who now lives in Oaxaca, Alma de Casa, which is a group of women from Mexico City, and the top piece, which is the group from Germany. One of the first groups that joined the Patchwork Blanket was 25 women from Germany, who have invited us to also travel to Germany someday when we can do that again. And we have the piece here that's numerous photographers, Yolanda Luna, Vida Yamovich, Roberta Nyman, not familiar with the other artists as much, but all these women also, and in the middle we have some embroideries from Helen Rojas, who's from San Cristobal, some beautiful, really outstanding pieces all together. Some of these pieces are collage, combined, mixed media, so it's a combination, and that will be, that we describe. Now we have a wonderful photo here. I want to just mention her because she is, she did one of the pieces, as did her partner in the group. She is an I wouldn't say ex, she's an ex-prostitute who's in a house where they help women recover from sexual trafficking and years of being under that situation. In some cases it went well, in some cases it didn't. So the house in Mexico City, and this was due to one of the women in the group who participated as an artist who got these women to make a piece. So this is one of those women who were one of our older ladies who participated. I think you're, and you can see, this is a children's one we call the children's blanket. It has a lot to do with the fear. The story in the middle is pretty powerful. When I read it, Vivir Sin Miedo was made by a family in Cancun who, an 8-year-old girl, the mother writes me that the little girl has always been afraid. She's been telling her aunts and her grandmother that she's very afraid to go out because somebody might steal her. So they asked her, what would you like your world to be? And she goes, I would like to be able to walk to the store by myself and go to the park and play with my friends without any fear. And so the grandmother, mother, and aunt decided to make this piece with her so she created this world that she would like to see in the future. These are the kind of stories that you just think is amazing when you read them, that so many of these stories are popping up from women from all over, none of which I have never met. Students from schools, women from Germany here. The top one is Kitchenettes, from a group from San Diego who were migrated to the United States many years ago and now have found an organization. And there's over 50 or more women, actually, I think she said was 200, who are there, and they are beginning to talk about their issues. And it was a very powerful workshop that they did to try to make pieces for this patchwork that talked about the violence that they have lived as women who migrated many, many years ago. Here we are working like crazy at Casa del Tiempo. All of us who were participating, Jimena, Cynthia, Lourdes, Yvonne, and her students, Mari Carmen. It was a monumental effort to get these pieces up and going. And if it, like I said, if it wasn't that we had some really wonderful ladies there who knew how to use a needle and thread and could use a sewing machine, we would have never been able to. We did numerous conferences and panel and press conferences in Mexico City when we started the project, and we got a flurry of great press. And that is why we had so many people come to the event on the 26th of January. Again, this is all part of where we're going into the next room. We're just looking at some of these pieces. Again, wonderful works by so many women, some embroidered, some painted, and all talking about what was happening. One of these things with these pieces that you can see is that many of these pieces are talking about a situation that we'll talk about in the next room. This is the piece that you saw on the recent article that came out. And these are all painters that participated from the United States and from Mexico. And I think they're really powerful all together, all different ages again. The one in the middle is, well, the symbol of the Virgen de Guadalupe. And when we saw it, and she said, the Virgen de Guadalupe, due to all the violence that's occurring in Mexico, has a beat up eye, as if she was also a victim of this violence. And it's quite powerful image. The artist Leah also did a video for it that you can see later, which is really powerful as well. Susie Chavez, Irene Marquez from San Diego, from Tijuana. There's quite a few ladies in here. I'd like to talk a little bit about this piece here, that on the left, Carlos, left. This, yeah. This is a really interesting story that also came out. Here we have some artists from Mexico and other places, but the bottom one at the bottom, these are embroidered, incredible works. If you see them close up, you'd be amazed. But the one in the corner, which is an angel laying sideways, is an artist from Oaxaca, Mexico, longtime activist with me, Edith Morales, whose piece was really an enlightening piece to all of us in Oaxaca, because this is a decapitated woman's head. It's the story of Donají. And no one ever realized that she's been the symbol to all the legal papers in Oaxaca, where she has this decapitated head. As she began to research her stories about women and the violence that was going on, she realized, oh my God, this is a decapitated woman that we just keep using. So to change some of the situations that are going on in Mexico, the machismo, the misogyny in the world, we have to understand these things that we've never even taken into consideration of, and look at it and think about, why have we allowed it to happen? Why do we use it? And I think this is what's interesting also about these pieces, that women start finding these things along the way, or the young girls who are next to her holding on. It's a photograph and a combination. Like I said, there's a lot of pieces of women working together. These are the new generation of young girls who were part, and we'll be talking about this when we get to the next room, the glitter revolution. This is, I think, South Carolina piece. Yolanda, this piece, My Body, My Joy, My Love. It's one of California's best. Photographers, again, from Mexico and Argentina, doing some powerful work. And we have one in the far right, which has got the Zapatista mask, which is a very powerful image of, and these are another of Yolanda's piece, but these are Trini, who has a wonderful video that we can take a look at. And Adriana is Lorena Calatayud, and she did a beautiful piece. This is a young woman and photographer and embroiderer. So there was groups of women who worked with other women to produce their pieces. Can we see Trini's video a little bit?
Trinita Tolueno. Una mujer fuerte que siempre luchó por tener a sus hijos a su lado. Retenida unos días en la cárcel de su pueblo, acusada por abandono de hogar. Ella solo quería divorciarse. Olga Pardo viaja con ella.
Cuídate mucho. Te quiero mucho. Que estés bien.
Que tengáis buen viaje.
This is her grandmother that was talking. Beautiful little clip that she did for her piece. And now we're going in to see the photographers, I think, for the next. This next group is the new body, the new work that we're working on in the Patchwork Healing Blankets. We've asked these very important female photographers in Mexico, Lourdes, Patricia, Lisbeth, and Susana have been working as documentary photographers for a very long time. Their work is based, Susana's work is based on transgenders, transvestites' life in Veracruz and in Mexico City. Very powerful. What we ask these women to do is take their stories and turn them into cloth books on cloth or paper. And so we're looking at that. The top piece is Patricia Arijes, which is a horrendous story that we never think about, but these are the children that are affected by the poison in communities of Guerrero, where they farm flowers that go to the markets all over Mexico. But the pesticides have destroyed most of these families. They're born with defects, or they're mentally affected or they lose a limb. Lisbeth's work, which is about human trafficking, that she created a series for. So all this will be, as we see in the next photos. Here's Lourdes' work, which is her personal work that she will be also talking about. She created the book, the cloth book that we can see on the right of this series that she was doing up on herself in healing. So we will have that accompany the patchwork healing blankets. All these books, a little bit like the codices, the manuscripts in Mexico that we were taking back, like I said, some of these forms that were lost along the way or weren't thought of as much. Now we're taking them back and giving them a new voice and new power in this exhibition. So that's the future projects that we're going to be combining with the patchworks. Someday when we get to Spark, we'll have the pieces ready to go. Now we're going into the last rooms, the making of and the, should we start with the March? Yeah, this is the January 26th. There's one of our healers, Mia, who herself and 8 other healers came and volunteered their time that day. Also, we're in the power center of Mexico, the Zócalo, the place of origin of the Aztec city and the ritual center. So there was a lot of healing, a lot of sage going around. There were all these women crying, getting out some of these feelings. There were children making pieces. There were dance. It was a very powerful day. I can say that we were all moved by the experience. And it happened to be the same day as March, another march that took place of the disappearance of people in Mexico. This was an amazing march and probably the most historic that we've seen in Mexico. This was the Women's March. 150 to 200,000 women marched the 8th of March, right before the pandemic. The city began to close down. Women from all over. The interesting thing is that the reason we got to this point, obviously, was all the deaths and the killings that were going on. Brutal killings. We're not talking about a husband who just kills a wife. It's brutal killings that occurred to children, to young girls, and to women by their partners. So women, seeing this kind of come up through the years and nothing was being done, decided to take to the streets and demonstrate and let the president know that this was horrendous. But there's a group of young women who really began all this, and they're called the Glitter Revolution. And the Glitter Revolution is an amazing group of young women who, not everyone likes their tactics, but I was pretty amazed that 17-year-olds to about 35-year-olds were decided that they no longer wanted to follow the established rules, most being believing in feminism and changing their minds about tradition. They were considered subversive feminists by the media, but all these girls stood their ground and began to take over. When they didn't get support by the government, or they were given a lot of rhetoric, they decided to go up, scale it up a little bit more, and they decided to break windows, cover monuments with pink glitter and purple glitter. And of course, this didn't go so well with a lot of this public, and they felt like this wasn't the way to do it. But it did encourage so many women to march on the 8th of March because they weren't afraid. And these are girls who rode on the Zócalo, who destroyed, I mean, you wouldn't consider these and they're not from one particular level of society, they're from a bridge of all levels of society. I saw girls from all levels of society there. and they weren't afraid, and they don't want to live the way their mothers and their aunts lived. You can see them as they break the windows and all. Some people, like I said, don't believe in this, the way they kind of constructed their marches and situations. But I think we can understand, as we see what's happening now in the United States and in other parts of the world, young kids are no longer interested in the way things were. And it has been so terrible, and they see that there's been so many lies that they are willing to break down what we consider as monuments or what we consider as important things, because it didn't really protect them and it didn't really help them in their future. So it's quite interesting how this has really changed and increasing in Mexico. The fact that they call them subversive feminists or the feminist group was also very interesting, because in Mexico, many people, many women, and in general, society isn't really quite aware of feminism or thinks of it as a horrible thing, or, you know, something that's changing women. And the truth of it is, we have to study it more, and we have to understand where it's coming from and why it happened. And instead of thinking that it's a bad thing, as the president thinks, who commented just a month ago that women needed to take care of the elderly, and that's their job, you know. So I think we're still struggling. We're still dealing with issues that occurred in the 70s, and we're still continuing, and the new generation will have to continue doing what they have to do to get past, so we can make changes for future generations. In the next wall is the making of, and this is where we'll close off. These are the beautiful, this is a little girl that I was telling you about that wanted a better world for herself and her friends. And these are the mother and grandmother and aunt who decided to help her make that world possible. So I thought that was just really wonderful. How they even got the information through the internet, how this message passed on about the healing blanket from woman to woman and university to universities is beyond me. Like I said, I'm not really that great in the digital world, but it's certainly spread like wildfire, and we have received so many. These are women working there, the Erika there, the big group who is from Lawak, and they are just amazing embroiders. That whole group knew how to use a needle and thread. Very powerful tool for those ladies. So this is just a few more images of that. Different women from Argentina, and there's some women from Boise, Idaho, and North Dakota, I think there. But we have tons more that we are going to continue working with, some of the material that they've sent, but it's a little overwhelming when there's to do it on your own at home. So these are the patchworks arriving at Casa del Tiempo, and us seeing how they just we got more and more as they came in through every day.
Well, Marietta, this has been an incredible walk through what has been your life for the past couple years, incredibly like motivating and channeling all of this energy throughout the world. So we're so thankful and grateful for you to share these stories and this many patchworks with us today. We want to introduce Davida Prasad, Programs Manager. She's going to read off a few questions from the audience, and if you haven't yet asked, please, you're welcome to ask the questions down in the chat box. We're also getting questions on the live stream, so Davida, please join us.
All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. Marietta, thank you so much for that walkthrough of the gallery. We have a few questions from both the Zoom room and our YouTube live stream. So the first question is from Judy Baca, Sparks founder and artistic director. How do you classify some murders as femicides? Or are all women killed violently considered femicides?
No, in fact, femicides is an intentional killing by the human rights organization and normally it's an intimate partner that does that. Your boyfriend, your husband, your father. This happens all over the world, but in Mexico, it tends to happen quite a bit. And that's the difference between the femicide and just killing of someone grabbing a young girl, which also happens in Mexico. And it wasn't until when was it, 2012, that they began to really divide these divisions of what's femicides and all in Mexico, because the organizations that were working towards letting people understand, especially after the Juarez incidents of hundreds of young girls there, which were incredibly brutal killings, they made the distinction of what kind of killings were taking place in Juarez, those that were killed by husbands and those that were killed by these men who were sequestering and robbing young girls. So the difference with femicide is really an intimate partner that kills intentionally the spouse.
Okay, thank you for that. We have some interest in learning a little bit more about the glitter revolution. Can you just speak about that particular movement?
Well, I was amazed as everybody else. I happened to be actually shopping that day, and I couldn't find a taxi, and someone told me there's a march, and of course Mexico, there's tons of marches. So I said, well, who's marching today? And they said, it's women. I said, oh, that's interesting. I'll go see it, because I was doing this project, so I wanted to check out what the march. I knew it was about the violence that was going on, but what I didn't know is who these girls were and where they were coming from. They came from different organizations all over Mexico. They were girls who have been around for a while and working on and being, learning about feminism and a new feminism, what some of them said, and really the ages from 17 to 35 at the most. They weren't afraid. They became outspoken as the marches went on, because there was quite a few as the months went on. Like I said, not everybody was really happy with what they did. I don't have photos of those where they covered the Independencia, the big angel in Mexico City, and they sprayed it and they put glitter all over it, and they destroyed a police station. And but every time they chanted through the streets, they would say, join us, because the next time it could be you, or remember, call their names, which they would name all the women that had been killed, women and girls. And they would also do performances and songs, but they were quite clear on their mission. And like I said, they got stronger and stronger as the marches went on. They went on to, for most people, they thought that it was very destructive, and then they were no different than some of the things that men do when they march and become destructive. But the difference here was that these girls were very, it could have been avoided had the government made a quick response to the first march, when the brutal killing of one of the women who was, I'm not going to say it, I can tell you now, but it was a very horrific killing of a young girl. I mean, there'd been quite a few, but this one in particular was horrific, by her boyfriend. And neighbors had heard, and they called, and no police came to help her. But when the president said that, this wasn't real, or that there wasn't that much, or that it was his opposition group, what governments need to understand is that this is really a pandemic. This is a true situation that has been increasing in the last 10 years. The deaths of women have just skyrocketed from what all the activists and human rights organizations are saying. They're amazed at what's happening themselves. Why is it happening? Frustration, lack of money, the pandemic only made it worse. And so what we have is a result of young girls who I can't say is that they're right or wrong, because that's not I think everybody lives their experiences, but I do think that it's a result of that. We're seeing that younger generations are not interested anymore, and they can't take it, and they're willing to fight back, as we're seeing in the United States. Black Lives Matter, with the happening in Seattle. I want to say that I'm very proud of all those moms and windblowers and all those that are defending the Black Lives Matter protest in Seattle. That was pretty amazing. So I think this is what's happening. We've not heard these issues, and this is the result. We haven't done anything. We haven't forced governments to change policies. We have presidents who are misogynist and machos all over the world. I mean, you know, you can just take any country and except the ones that are run by women. This is a result of all that. That's why we're doing the Patchwork Healing Blanket, to heal, to understand, to unite and express these concerns together and see what we can do as a group together of women around the world.
I know we're going to be hearing from a few of the artists who participated in the project, so I'll just take one more question from the YouTube live stream for now, and then we'll, continue exploring this conversation a little bit later on. Anna is wondering if you can speak a little bit more about the logistics behind the project. Specifically, how was the call for embroidery distributed, to who, and how long did it take?
Well, when you're starting a project like this, and it really went from a whole bunch of us having coffee and drinks and, talking about it. And now my influence with Patchwork, and I think many women here from the United States and Canada and other places, I grew up in the South in Mississippi. So I grew up seeing women do patchwork and quilts, and was very amazed how women got together and talked and solved issues doing those patches and those quilts. Like the women from Alabama, the BGs, the BGN quilts that are fantastic. When I went to Mexico and worked with women there, Patchwork had been a part, and this is what I'm researching now, is what happened to it here in Mexico. And it was used really out of which also in the States, the bags that were given in flour in those years back. So grandmothers and women would make covers, blankets for the bed here in where I research is in Oaxaca, for their covers, and they make pillows, and they make clothes for their children. But the polyester clothing started coming in, and it was much cheaper, and it was better to look like you had a new dress than a patch me or hand me down or handmade clothing. So it sort of went to the side. But what I've done in the past 10, 12 years is really take back the patchwork and begin to share the information with with the help of other women who were also in this project, like Monica Machon, who's a brilliant quilter, in working with a village in Mexico of women who have been affected by migration and their families going to the States. Sparks also was one of our hosts for that project. And that really changed the lives of women. And that's when I realized that this whole aspect of developing projects takes time. And when we make the call, it isn't just make a call, put it out on the line. That's part of it. In this case, it was many years of talking and sharing information with a lot of women throughout Mexico and the United States. Like I said, 12 years. So it makes it more, when you do a project like this and you make a call, people then know what you've done. So you can, and this continues. This hasn't stopped. The point of this project is that we make the calls all the time, and we share the information to a lot of women's organizations around the world. And we tell them that we'll continue to accept patchwork pieces as long as a woman is willing to tell her story and a woman is willing to share one with us, so that we can just show how much violence there is by when you begin to see just how many we have. Someday we'd like to go back to Mexico City with these patches and cover the whole Zócalo, which then we know will make a lot, and it will be one very large public art piece, like the AIDS quilt project in the early 90s in Washington.
We'll continue to take questions throughout the presentation on YouTube and on Zoom, so feel free to drop those into the chat box. And Marietta, I think this is a great time to introduce the artists of the panel.
Yes. We have some amazing artists here from Mexico and from the United States, Dorothy, who I just met virtually not too long ago. So let me introduce you, Lourdes Almeida, who was our inspiration in making and helping us really create these blankets with her knowledge. Lourdes is one of the most recognized female photographers in Mexico, visual artist, who's always worked with mixed media. And so she will be talking about her work and how she uses all these. Jimena Cancino, who is an artist who's worked with ceramic and glass and has now returned to patchwork making in cloth, works a lot with social projects in Mexico City as well. Mariana Sadowski, also originally from Mexico, but now lives in Los Angeles and is highly active in public art, as well as working with projects that concern social issues. Dorothy Thursby, glad to have met you. Dorothy is a visual artist as well as a patchwork and quilter. So she'll be expressing her views about how she's managed to combine all these, and the piece is just a beautiful piece about what we hope the future will be. Welcome, ladies.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello. So I'm going to start with Mariana, who's, let's say, half in the US and half in Mexico, so we can start the dialogue. Mariana, I just wanted to ask you, you've been, working with these issues on social projects, and you've used textiles in the past. Tell us a little bit about how you went about creating your piece with a group of women for this project.
Well, actually, I think we talked a year ago about this project, and you said you needed these right away. And so I said, well, I have had the experience before. In 2016, I did a project with making these pieces of cloth and patchwork with printing and painting and patchwork on different pieces of cloth for a project, a voting project in 2016 in East LA. And what we did is we wrote, the whole community wrote on these pieces what they would like to see in these elections and what they care about in community. And then the following year I had worked as well with people with Germans and refugees. The Syrian refugees had just arrived in Germany a few months earlier. And so I paired up German families with Syrian refugees to talk about their experience and about their stories. And I thought about doing this also, just as you're doing in this project, talking about our stories. I think it has been culturally, like in Mexico, where women have written their stories in the huipiles, where in the quilts in the United States, women have expressed all their stories in Chile during the Pinochet regime, how women have also expressed, and it has been always underground in a way. It has been very subtle, but it is such a powerful form of expression of those that maybe haven't been able to express all of that. And I think that was at that point, the idea, and I think it's part of this idea of this healing, the patchwork healing blanket, to express what we are feeling, right, and to bring it out in whatever we can do in different media. So with what I did here is I'm from Mexico City, and I've been reading all the news. I'm very connected to Mexico. I have all my family living in Mexico, and I'm very connected to what has been happening with all the feminicides and with the violence against women. So for me, it was like basta con los feminicidios, because it feels to me, I just, I cannot hear this anymore. How can we stop this? And that was my project. So when you talked to me about this, I gathered a group of women here in Los Angeles and invited women to just gather, and I brought all the materials together and let everyone express their feelings on gender violence.
That's kind of one of the things we are seeing in this project, that a lot of women not only did a piece, but they brought other women and they got bigger in more pieces. We'd get 20 to 25 pieces from different groups all over. This takes me back to what you were saying about personal feelings. Lourdes, I am so grateful that you participated in this project, being a big fan of your artwork for many years, but you've been dealing with the creativity of women and the tools women have used throughout your work, and dealing with how people respond to that. And can you tell us a little bit how that's
well, I think the most important thing of this project, the importance of the project is the group, all the women that participate in that. I think it's not my own project or my own work or the other artists. Right now in this project, the artists are not important. The importance is the huge project, all the women talking about the same thing. All we want to heal the world in we are living. And for me, going there to make embroidery together, to talk with other artists, to talk with other women that are not artists, was amazing, was the most important thing. And the day special event in the Zócalo was really incredible. We saw fantastic things. I want to talk about a little girl that came and talked to me, and she told me, I want to participate with you. It's possible? I told her, yes, of course. And her mother came to me and told me, it's incredible you accept my child because she has problems. Problems, I don't know. I think she has problemas de depresión, de bipolaridad. She has bipolar, something like that, and she couldn't speak. She couldn't use her hands. I didn't know. I didn't take care of that. I didn't saw that, but she was part of something, and she was really, was very touching. And I am very grateful with you, with all the project, with all the women, because it's being part of a group is the most important thing in this project. I don't know if I answered your question, but I think this is more important. My project is about child abuse, but all the project is the same. All the project talk about we women have to stop the violence. We have to talk about the violence in our homes, and we have to stop. That's the most important thing. And doing this by embroidery in group well, it's really incredible. The energy that you create with this is it's amazing.
Thank you. This is something, like I said, that keeps coming up all the time. Women, the next Dorothy, which we haven't met, we never met, and when we received your piece at Casa del Tiempo, all the artists and everyone said, "Oh, how beautiful!" They all wanted to take it home because it was such a light of hope. And I think what Lourdes is saying is quite wonderful, and what you said also, if you can express that, is what you came about and how you found out about the project while you were, where were you when you found out about the project?
Well, I got an email and I knew immediately that I wanted to participate, but I didn't know what image, and the deadline was coming up very quickly. This image was a drawing I had done 20 years ago at kind of a dark period in my life. It was hanging in my studio for years and years, and I decided to turn it into an embroidery. So it has kind of a painful memory for me, but also I wanted to participate, to sort of tell my story, to put my story into this big ocean, like, you know, drops in this ocean, to be a part of that bigger, you know, like Lourdes said, it's everyone's story. We're part of something much bigger. And the violence and the pain is around us, but there's something inside of us that one day says, no, enough, we're going to stop, we have to change. And it's about that healing and the hope that happens when you say no, when you stop. And so, you know, it's a mother who's protecting a child. It's our inner self who protects ourself. And the trees are like a sacred space, like a cathedral that's holding that space, you know, like the earth, the protection of the earth around us. And that gives us the hope to go forward and to change our life. And I think it takes years and years to heal. And the process of sewing, I learned sewing from my mother and my grandmother, so there's this generational connection, I think helps you go forward and helps you create change. And you have to talk, and you have to share, and you have to move forward.
Well, thank you, Dorothy. We'll get back with another question that I'm dying to ask you about this piece. But going to Jimena, Jimena was one of the grand supporters of trying to get it all together for the event, and worked extremely hard on her project, as well as she is also a teacher of patchwork at the universities at UAM. So can you tell us a little bit of your experience about how you felt about making of the piece and what you've experienced during this project, Jimena?
Yes, well, I started the piece thinking about all the violence against the women, and I wanted to create a piece where you could see that the message is that the women are not alone, that they have like support in some ways. So here you can see it's like the violence, but also people trying to help. And because sometimes when there's like all this violence, the women isolated and create like a bubble of isolation and vulnerability. And I think it's very important that they know that they are not alone. That's my main message in this piece.
And you know, you being returning from London recently, when you got to Mexico City with all this violence, I'd like to ask you how you felt about that as a woman, because this is what we're talking about. This is what made us start this project.
Yeah, well, Mexico, it's incredibly, well, it's overwhelming to see all the numbers of feminicides and everything in Mexico. But I've been in London, as you say, and I was working with some African communities there. And also you can see the genital mutilation in Africa. It's and even in all it's like a cultural thing. And it's terrible, it's brutal. So I think there's violence all over the world against women and children. And but the numbers in Mexico are incredible. So I think we have to, that's why this project is so important, because it's global, but Mexico have terrible, terrible numbers in every day. You know, it's more like something that you can see every day. As you say, not only with the husbands or family, but like the society, it's getting all this violence, and I think we have to stop with something. And this is a good project, I think, where you can show and see the I don't know, the dimension. I think that the politics have to see and put it in his political agenda. I think it's very important.
And one of the things we were dealing with in all this is really the history of women in the textiles. I mean, we know it, we've seen it, we've heard it. Mariana, you were talking about this in your conversation about the stories on the huipiles of the indigenous women, the history that they place there. I mean, there's this huge tradition of expression and soothing and healing textiles, no? Mariana,
Yes.
You've been working, yeah. ¿Nos dices un poco de eso?
Yes, I think that there is a lot of symbolism in the huipiles, in all the embroidery on the huipiles, and all that symbolism sort of tells the story, not only about one person, but it tells also the story of a community. And but it has never been seen as that, right? It has never been really or it hasn't been researched that much as the story of a community. It is just something that it is an underlying story of the lives of indigenous women, of different indigenous communities that never have had really a voice.
And this is one of the things in the project that we decided that one of the most important things to respect first was Mother Earth, because Mother Earth is the mother of all of us, and that if you can't respect the primary source of water, food, air, then you can't really respect the rest, which is her children, her daughters and children. So this is why we bonded these things together, because we understood as women, especially, I think this is what we're seeing here. And Judy, we've talked about this many, many times throughout the years, is this energy flow of women that women have. And we're seeing it in situations like Lourdes is talking about, this tremendous amount of energy that we got by working together and constructing this, because this is a multiple effort of women. I might have talked about it and started it, but it wouldn't have happened if not every one of these women would have participated and continue to participate in this piece. There are, like I said, so many women that need to tell their story, and these are, to me, are heroes. These are the new heroes. We think of people who are, but I see you guys as the heroes who can really help heal the situation that we're facing today. So if we can talk a little bit how this has healed you, how the process has healed you in the situation. Dorothy, you were talking on that one.
Yeah, I think the process of making the quilt, you draw your picture and you manipulate it, and your feelings go into the drawing, into the fabric itself. So having that communication with your piece allows you to, actually the feelings come out into the cloth, I believe, and it allows you to settle with your feelings, and in some ways maybe forgive yourself for mistakes you think you might have made, but also I think to become part of everyone else's story, to be part of a community, to not feel alone in what you have experienced, and to hear other stories, to be able to listen, to take in other people's pain and what they have gone through. You don't feel alone, you feel connected to many other people. And so I think that process of making is healing, and that process of being connected to other people is healing. And the process of listening to stories is healing.
Yeah, No, that's fabulous.
Marietta, and also, oh, sorry.
No, jump in.
I want to talk about the assembly of all the different works. You can see you can feel the energy, as Dorothy says. For example, when I was making the assembly of the girls of Oaxaca, I pricked with the needle a lot of times. It was very, very difficult. And I think myself, these girls has to be, o tienen que tener, a lot of problems, because I was really a lot of, tenía muchas cortaditas, no sé cómo decirlo.
Yeah, you were being pinned and cut as you were making it because you felt the energy from these young girls.
Yes, I feel this energy. And in other work, I feel another energy. Well, for me, it was fantastic to have this opportunity to feel your work, the Dorothy work, the Jimena, the Yvonne, all the group, the team, the great team that you que se conformó, el gran equipo que se conformó. Well, it's incredible. The energy is really a healer. I don't know. It's okay. Well,
A healing.
A healing.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we noticed and we're noticing. And now that I had the time due to the pandemic, which was, some people can call it negative, but isn't that amazing? We were high and ready to get going with our patchworks everywhere, and we had people in Hidalgo, and we had people in San Diego and Tijuana that wanted to see it, and all of a sudden everything stopped. But it gave me the chance to really read everything everybody wrote. Because, when you're doing all this, you don't have time just getting it together. Like Jimena knows, I mean, we're just like going crazy the last days. Yeah, everybody was just crazy. And so we didn't really look at that. But when I had time these months to read the incredible stories that most of the women wrote, and just what they were saying, and like Lourdes is saying, just see the pieces. I wish I could share with you each and every piece individually because they're so outstanding. Even if it's a child's piece, they generate what they have, So this is the power, I think, that Judy and Spark and all those have taught at here at Spark, where is the generation of this art form that is really a collective effort, a social effort, and less an individual effort. This project is definitely that aspect to it. See?
Yeah, well, I just want to say that it's like a patchwork of experiences and of stories. So that's the amazing thing. It's like a story. It's like a story that you're telling through all these textiles that it's incredible. And that's what's, as you say, it's something collective, but at the same time, it's very intimate. Because you have many stories, many individual stories in a very huge collective piece.
And I would add to that, it's not only the story, it's a testament of what so many women are living and are suffering. It is a real testament of this time as well.
Yes, it's, I think you're right, because there were so many, we had to do something, right? We as creative individuals and women, we weren't part of the glitter revolution. It was in our age range, but we were interested in doing something that could be powerful enough to make people take notice. And I think this patchwork, from the first event onto having this virtual experience here with Spark, I think it's quite moving to know that all your stories are told and that more stories are needed to be told so that we can heal this tremendous problem that is all over the world that they're having. I mean, the United Nations, I read a statistic of what they were saying. It's like 243 million women in the world have been in situation of sexual assault or abuse or killing. So, you know, why do we have to live this way? Why do the children live this way? So I think even though we talk about a very complex and difficult situation, as the young girls say, we have to say their names and we have to call the problem and we have to make solutions happen as we're healing ourselves through this process, because we can't forget all those that in many of these titles that you'll be seeing where they're saying not one more, or ni perdón ni olvido, ni basta, or somos el grito de las que ya no pueden gritar. All these sayings are what we're feeling, and it's like a chant. I want to say something, and I don't know, you guys can touch on this, is that looking at this and seeing what was occurring in Mexico, there was truly what the young girls talk about, a coven. You know, you know, in some cases, some of them mentioned this, that, you know, this witches, you know, because if in the last event of where you saw in the video, which is Antonio lent me that video for this project because mine was really bad. The girls were around a bonfire, you know, como brujas, así haciendo movimiento y todo. And I was standing there looking at it, and it was like if I was in like hundreds of years back of what that might have been like, you know, of what the situation. But the fact that they were chanting and dancing and performing, it was something much greater than an individual or self, and they were doing it right in front of the president's home to let him know about his comments and his situations of not dealing with the situation. And I think that's very interesting, what was occurring, that energy. We felt it in the march when we all went to the march. We were feeling it here. What is occurring, you think, in your own perspective? ¿Qué piensan? What do you think? Anyone, start.
Well, maybe you are right, but well, I think I love the girls, right? How the girls now is working, las de la diamantina rosa.
Yeah.
I think they are brave. They están hartas.
Yeah.
I love this group de mujeres aguerridas. A mí me encanta. Hay gente que las siente agresivas, pero es que tienes que ser agresiva. Cada quien tiene su forma. Yo las admiro mucho.
This is the glitter revolution that we're talking about.
The pink glitter.
That a lot of us really admired, that tenacity and that humph that they, you know, that they're doing to just get liberated. That was pretty, and some other people did not. They didn't like it or felt afraid or didn't want to see that, but as women did it in the 70s, and Judy being one of the who marched during those days, you know, you just have to keep doing it all the time in whatever form you have to do it to be able to get respect from society and to be able to regain yourself, you know. And I think we're seeing it, and that's why I'm thrilled that many of these girls are part of this patchwork, because they're great. Aside from it all, they're great embroiderers, and they did quite a few pieces in the patchworks of that defiant act.
Well, I march also in the 70s. I prefer this kind of work, but I also went to the march, the huge march. I I think everything is okay. Everything. We are a huge world. We have different thoughts. Everybody is okay. And it's very important that the young women are talking and they want to have respect.
And also, I think it's not only about respect. I think it's also that they live in a reality that it's so terrible.
Yes.
You know, all these young girls, they cannot go in the street and feel safe. So it's a point that it's much more than just rebellion. They're like fighting for their lives, and it sounds so terrible, but it's true. That's a reality.
Yes.
And I feel also it's a response to generations that they know that they had to keep silence, because there are so many, maybe they're generations of their mothers, the grandmothers that were molested maybe by a family member. And all of this were right now, there is the moment where they can go out in the streets, and where many more women, they feel empowered because there are many more younger people that say, we are not keeping that silence, because generations before us kept that silence, didn't go out, didn't say anything about it. And now they are coming and feeling empowered, feeling the support by many other women, and feeling this freedom actually to chant, to be outgoing, to go out and say it in a safe place where they are surrounded by women that feel the same.
Yeah, I think that's the day after. We didn't talk about that, and we should. For all of you who are in Mexico, sabían, participated in El Día Después, or El Día Sin Mujeres, which was a very powerful thing that took place also.
Wow.
It happened in the United States, but in Mexico, it was called that you would not go to work, you would not go to school, no woman would show themselves on the following day to see what it was like with a day without women, completely. The whole, well, when you see that in Mexico City, a 30 million size city, and all of a sudden, more than half of the population's gone, it's quite of a scary thing, a scary situation, but it also, I think, empowered, and it showed women, you can make that change. And especially the young girls, that you have to, because there is no government that's going to save you, and there is no other. It has to come from us. That's what we're trying to say also in this project, is it's not coming from some figure. It has to come from us, because there is no one as interested as us in this situation. And when we talk about the deaths, or you mention it to colleagues or other people, that, oh yeah, that's terrible, isn't it? Well, no, it's really terrible, and what happened, or it's almost as we keep accepting it to increase. We keep accepting the numbers. We keep accepting that another young girl's gone, and another young girl was raped, that somebody in the Uber was taken, that somebody and found later. I mean, and it's not just happening in Mexico. The United States has a really horrific problem with disappearances and sexual slavery and sexual trafficking. Mexico being one of the places where most children are stolen from, the United States being the country which receives and buys the children. So we have a severe problem as a community, a world community, and we have to put it together. The fact that we never resolved the issue of Juarez, the women in Juarez, nothing was ever done, impunity to all that we never understood. Then this recent case of the young girl in Fort Hood, the Mexican girl who was found dead and killed there in her own station in Fort Hood, which was a horrific situation, with it being a soldier of the American Army and having been killed within your own force. So I think these are the kind of things that we have to keep talking and and understanding and how we're going to deal with it, how we're going to use this means to really come together, to dialogue and to unite and stop the madness. It's a madness.
Yeah, it's completely, I think it's completely a madness. But yeah, I think we have the power, and we demonstrated in this project that it's not so big. You can see the power of the women, and so I think together we can do amazing things.
Yeah, together you and putting them together and seeing which woman talks about what, and how they use it and how their situations and their abilities. Everybody needs to express this issue, because the reason, I think the question that Davida had asked about how this project came about, the project comes about because of this energy that Lourdes is talking about, because there's women all over the world that know there's problems. We know it, we feel it, we have that connection. We've known it for a long time.
Yes,
and it just needed a little push. A group of women who were coming from a severe situation like Mexico with the huge problem, to just push it to the next levels so that it could generate like a snowball effect, if you want to call it that, where you begin one project and it just keeps growing, because this theme is really half the population, or more than half the population.
Yes.
We
So
have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I think actually segues really nicely with what you're all speaking about. So should we go ahead and start some of
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, great. So in our YouTube live stream, Diane had asked earlier, and I think you all touched on it to a certain degree, but were there any specific positive actions taken by the government as a result of the Women's March?
Yes, there was. There was the head of government. She took back the first words she said about the young girls, where she said we won't tolerate this kind of thing. And later she tolerated and let them continue on their marches. Unlike the United States, where they beat you up, they didn't beat them up, But but it did change some laws. What happens though is that it's going to be a slow process, If it doesn't happen right away, and if you don't see an action from the head of the government, like the president himself saying, any man that does anything to a child or a woman in these brutal forms will be put in jail or sentenced to life, nothing's going to get done, because.
But, Marietta, Davida, I think if the government do anything, we can do. We cannot expect the government solves, because they have a lot of different ideas. I think really they don't do what they have to do. They don't do. All the women that we went to the march, we saw what happened. The government, the city government didn't want that march. They did everything hicieron todo para bloquearla.
To block the march.
Y aún así no lo lograron.
And even though that it didn't stop us from coming together.
Davida, yo creo que no es importante si el gobierno responde o no. Responden, desde mi punto de vista, muy tibiamente.
Yeah.
Pero nosotros vamos a seguir trabajando porque todo cambie y porque haya más seguridad.
And we'll continue to protest and to express ourselves so that everything changes and we're not waiting for the government anymore.
Yeah, I think that the civils will have the power when we are all together, but we need that community, and we need that power of unity.
Yes, that's definitive.
And I think we're seeing in many parts of the world that we cannot rely on the government. There are a lot of things that we have to do as citizens, as women, as men, as community. And I think that's where the changes are going to start. I mean, we have seen a very big environmental movement started by a 16-year-old girl, and we can start seeing movements that are actually starting with the people. And I think that's where the importance is, to educate people to come together as community.
Mhm.
What other question?
Beatrice from our YouTube live stream brought up the fact that we haven't spent too much time talking about mental health, but doesn't it go hand in hand with violence and abuse? Can you speak a little bit to that?
Well, anyone want to say something before I do?
No, you go on.
One of the articles that I read about is that it's not always just a mental health issue. It's a social condition that causes, I mean, mental health. If we were to look at some of the presidents of the world right now, we would say they were mentally unfit, to be leading countries, and mental health is an issue that is, I think we all have some degree of these issues. So we don't deal with it like if somebody, because they're bipolar, all of a sudden no one wants to talk about it or drug them or whatever. But I think part of mental health is due to what we're talking about, community and unity. Why this little girl that came to Lourdes, who had an issue of mental health, found comfort in our unit there, our togetherness, our dancing, our chanting, our sewing. She felt comfort in that moment. So I think the mental health issue is something that a psychologist really should be talking about. And some of the women that participated actually are psychologists who worked through a university in La Paz, who actually touched on those issues and worked with their students on the issue of mental health by making pieces and talking about that and what happens. They actually wrote a text about that. So within the pieces, we begin to see that. But the problem is so many different levels and of where we just broke off, that we're having to try to understand how to as a society, how to fix it again. Is there another question?
We do have another question about the future of this project. Will you be taking patchworks from more countries, and what do you anticipate coming next?
Well, just recently, through the help of a good friend, Alessandra, who's also here, we're connected with an organization in San Diego, and so we'll be going to San Diego. I don't want to spoil the thing for them, so I'm not going to say anything more, but we will actually be going there if we can ever fly again and leave our countries. And also the women in Germany who participated with us have invited us to Germany and was in the process of working on that and trying to get us to go there. They actually made a sister program called the Healing Blanket from Germany. They asked us and I said, that's fine. The whole point is to get more girls to join. And so we're nonstop and we're going constantly to wherever. We'd like to deal with the Native American issue in the United States, the deaths and disappearances of many of those women, also the Black Lives Matter issue. We need a lot of different voices of different backgrounds and cultures and religions and, to tell us their story, to share the story so we can share it with other women and build that unity.
And just to add to that, during the run of the show, we're really hoping to also share information with the public about how to create your own patchwork and add it to the Healing Blanket project. So stay updated with information from Spark and from the Patchwork Healing Blanket about how to do that. We have another question here in Zoom from Sandra. Where do you see work being done to address toxic masculinity? Some men are socialized differently. And how do we begin conversation about the young men we were raising?
Well, Sandra's a good teacher for that one. That's because that's what alguien más habla de eso para que no sea la única.
Mejor tú.
It's funny when we talk about what happens in one country and another. One of the things we realized in this project, and this is about this issue, is that women in Mexico have a different way of looking at things or have a different way of relating to things. And not because we've been under, this whole structure of machismo forever, but because the enemy, I would say, is not just a man. The enemy, as Mariana said in our conversation months and months back, she has 2 boys. How do you teach those boys? I want to teach my boys. No, Mariana, you were talking about how to make them healthy, because they're not bad. And my daughter tells me, well, our generation doesn't even have these issues like what's going on there. So I think generations change, and naturally, if we are as mothers begin to respect ourselves, then we'll teach those boys to respect women. The first thing is respect ourselves, that we tend to forget as women along the way.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a son, and I think he thinks completely different from our generation when we were his age. So I think things are changing slowly, and we have to participate. But I think it's very important that with the new generations, they are the future. So we have to focus on them. No, I think, and especially on boys, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mariana, you with 2 boys, and you, Dorothy, I think you have a son as well.
I do have a son, so I think it's how you raise them, and I think they are changing.
Yeah, I think
the
so.
way.
Yeah.
The way they talk to their peers, the range of friends that they have, the way they speak to their girlfriends. I think it's a different generation, but I think they have to be aware also of their own inherent biases that they have.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's important that they are aware of what is happening, even if we educate them in a certain way, and maybe we are surrounded by men that are wonderful as well. And but I think just making them aware what is happening to others, and that there are certain things that are just that they cannot cross a certain line. And even maybe because that can bring up also a dialogue with friends, right? Or with other men, or with other.
Well, I remember years ago asking my young brothers, did they think the men rule the planet? And my young brother said, at that time he was a young teenager, and he said, yes, that's what society tells us. I said, well, how do you get that information, or where are you getting that information from? So, I mean, the society structure of everything, we allow it, and women and men are just as guilty in this situation. I know it from growing up, where I'm told, serve your father, your mother, you serve somebody, you serve the man, particularly in the Latino culture, in ethnic cultures, and the South, the same, Deep South, that was a given, when we accepted. So I think the process to healing or developing a better society is for both men and women to begin to understand these issues and to stop them, because you pass them on. And if we pass them on, we're going to be self-destructing, as we see things are at this point in the planet, what we're self-destructing kind of creatures, and we're not really looking at the positive or how we can do that. I mean, where people are willing to take the lives by not wearing a mask, by going out, by doing these massive things. You're thinking about your own personal freedom, but you're not really thinking about your neighbor or the child next to you. So I think it's that respect that we don't carry is a human issue.
You know something also, maybe we as mothers want to change how we educate our children. I have a boy, well, it's not a boy.
It's a grown up.
Un señorote. But sometimes all the information comes in the unconscious, en el inconsciente. And we have to begin to change also el inconsciente colectivo and el inconsciente de los hombres. Tiene que ir cambiando paulatinamente porque a veces no es que tú los eduques a que tengan respeto, lo tienen, pero les salen las cosas del inconsciente, de años, de siglos, ¿no?
Yeah, it's been yeah for years and years, no? Yeah. So yeah, it's not going to be easy. I think it will take time to see the changes, but the thing is to start doing it.
Yes,
no?
Of course. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We have time for one more question before we close out. This is from Teresa. How can professional women cope with the macho behavior of bosses and colleagues? Any advice to spot men with such behavior and get away early?
I think the most important thing, because you're all over the place, it's everywhere in every country. The most important thing is to be able to laugh. If you take everything that your colleagues or your spouse or everybody throws at you, it could really start making you very angry and very bitter with time. If you don't let go, and if you don't, as my favorite guru, Sadhguru, would say, if you don't center yourself, if you don't heal your inner self, everything that comes at you just kind of throws you off. And there is a big problem when in these issues, you can't stop it. You just have to find ways to let it go by you. Like in Tai Chi, the energy that comes and you let it go.
That's rejected.
Yeah, you reject it and you laugh and you go, yeah.
No lo tomes personal, sí.
Yeah.
No,
or say, yeah, or just say, oh, well, you're so ancient, or dinosaurs, my God, and move on to, and not because there's so many, and it's so many ages. I mean, I know that in the States, we think that Mexico is macho, but I've lived in the States many, many years, and machismo is very prominent. I mean, we see the president, I mean, how did a society allow the most misogynist machista in the White House, the same way they let Brazil and Mexico and all these men position themselves? There should be a law, or there should be some way that we could say, hey, let's see how what your wife says about you before we elect you, and what have you done for society before you even can consider going into a position like that? Because it throws us back years, because they allow it and they push it and they permit more men to do that. And that's really tragic and dangerous for women and girls.
Just a note that question came in Spanish. So if one of you could translate some of the points that came up, that would be great.
Bueno, pues lo que te dijo Marietta es que realmente no lo tomes personal. Tenemos que aprender las mujeres a dejar pasar esas cosas, a reírnos de eso, a no tomarlo en serio, no tomarlo como que viene para ti. Si tú haces caso, te van a seguir molestando. Finge demencia. Bueno, así lo entiendo.
Finge demencia means, what is that in English, Mariana?
I don't know how to say it in English.
Pretend you don't know.
Yeah, pretend you don't. Because it's always, it's never, I talk about it with my daughter who thinks that, oh my God, my friends aren't like that. But you're going to come across it. And if the world wasn't like that, we wouldn't be fighting for these horrific problems that we have in Mexico. They're bad. And walking on the streets and being whistled at or fearful that maybe some people are going to come, especially in vulnerable communities or children that are being taken for sexual trafficking, because that's a huge business now. It's $1 billion business. It exists. So how do we stop that? That is the question that we're all trying to work through in this project.
And
Y yo
I believe that
bueno,
perdón.
I'm sorry. No, digo, y hablando en español también, esas cosas están empezando también a cambiar porque se están haciendo foros de cosas de abuso, de hasta dónde esto es un abuso, de hasta dónde llegar, de cómo y les están tratando también de enseñar a los hombres cuando algo es abusivo, cuando una mujer dice no, o sea, todo ese tipo de límites están empezando a pasar. Por lo menos, por ejemplo, mi sobrina acaba de tener un foro muy grande de gente que trabaja en cine, y es como casi como para primaria, pero es como a ver qué es no, cuando hay un abuso, cuando se siente una mujer incómoda, en fin, ese tipo de cosas. Entonces yo siento que sí están empezando a cambiar esas cosas en cuestión de trabajo, pero pues es poco a poco, no va a ser fácil.
Yes, I believe so too, that when we, I think movements like this, the importance is that we start the conversation, and when there is a conversation, because we're living in a world where there are women and men and everything around that. But I think just establishing that conversation and opening up to that conversation, I think that's the important part, so that we can actually co-live in this world.
I wanted to interject here if I could. First of all, I congratulate you on your work. It's quite extraordinary. It's very moving to see the range of thought of so many women and so many different approaches to the experiences they've had. And each time you look at another piece, it kind of deepens and widens your sense of just how profound and how pervasive violence against women is. And that in itself, I think, is one of the most powerful acts. The pervasiveness, the wide range of it, the agelessness of it, it's just really profound. And as in terms of looking at how we deal with what is going on, is we resist. We resist the machismo. And that's what you're doing with the quilt, with the patchwork. You are creating a shroud, in a sense. I mean, make it so big that we can cover American monuments with it. Make it so big that we can take over the central mall of Washington, D.C. Make it so large that we cover the battleships. I mean, that's what I think. The scale of it is profound. And the other part of it is that it's another kind of monument. We need new monuments, rather than the man on the horse with a pigeon sitting on his head made of bronze, talking about his triumphs over people and how many people he murdered. I mean, that's how we monumentalize things. So that this is a meditation. It's a blanket that covers you and keeps you warm. It has all of these. What a range of ideas is within this process. It's a community making process. So it just really appeals on so many different levels. So for that, I really say congratulations. And I think we can't laugh off the male machismo. We have to, each time it happens, you maybe laugh off on ourselves so that we don't get angry and bitter, as you said, but we draw the line and say, you cannot step over this line. You will not do that to me. And we teach the younger girls the same.
Yeah, I think for those who don't know, Judy, you are one of those women who would have been called the subversive feminist, like the young glitter revolution, who at 21, 22 years old, 27, whatever it was, you started Spark and you started this whole project of public art and dealing with the machismo, because your background and all the men you had to deal with.
Yep.
And yet I see it in you that, you chose the art method, and you've chosen this whole aspect of, it's not going to kill me. I'm going to survive, and I'm going to keep doing what I do best. Right. I mean, that strength of resistance, I think, is what's so great about the project, is being able to share those stories of other women and see, because all of us are trying to just get by and be respected for what we know, not just as a female object of some sort.
Right, and the thing is the creation of those spaces. I mean, Spark is a space that was created specifically to be a space where women could thrive, where people of color could thrive, where we could have an alternative to the commercial gallery system. And that's what you've done with this quilt. It isn't playing to the high art world. And it is creating a space for people to work together, which basically undermines the system of the heroes, right? You know, like the art boys that are typically the art men, who are kind of considered the geniuses, and everybody falls beneath them. This is basically saying even the child has a voice that's important. So in that, you just hit so many points on what I think is a wonderful public monument.
Well, from you, Judy, that's a great thing to hear. That's like a cherry on the top.
You did it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for this incredible conversation. And I know it's an immense subject matter that I'm sure we're all going to carry with us and keep talking about in our own circles, our own communities. And hopefully, again, as a community of Spark and a community of artists and allies as well. At this point, I'd love to invite Carlos Rogel to make some closing remarks. And Marietta, I'd like to encourage you to make some closing remarks about the project as well.
Okay.
Yes. We can go with Marietta first and then Carlos.
Okay.
Well, just because you're a guy, he doesn't have to go last. He can go first, and I can no, because he's the director, he goes last. So no, I think all I want to say to everyone who's hearing this and will be hearing this is that we want you to make a piece. We want you to really tell your story here and join us as women, as students, as children, as families. We think it's very important that this is not something that's from one country. It's a humongous problem worldwide. And we want to make a better planet. And so for me, the only thing I can say is thank you to all the women who have done these amazing pieces. Thank you to my team here at home, who without them, I would have not been here today. And to the Spark team for being so supportive in this project, Carlos, Davida, and Judy for making Spark be around for 40 years. That's what it's all about, resisting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marietta. And I'll invite our executive director, Carlos, to make some closing remarks.
Thank you, Marietta. Thank you for all of this hard work and gorgeous curation. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on the virtual opening of the Patchwork Healing Blanket. We're really proud to say that it was over 150 people that joined us during this event. So quite spectacular between the Zoom and the YouTube streaming. So we really want to acknowledge all the hard work of the Spark team who contributed so much to facilitating this virtual exhibition. There was a lot of coordination, and we want to just acknowledge Davida Prasad, our programs manager, Jeff Edwards, our DML tech, Joselle Cruz, our programming wizard, Samantha Magana, our admin, and Christina Girod, who helped with design, our interns, our wonderful interns, of course, our artistic director, Judy, and our board of directors, many of whom attended today. The exhibition will be accessible through our website through September 19th. So we've shared that link with you on the chat. So please share that widely. Please visit, take a closer look at the piece yourself. You can use it on your iPad, cell phone, computer. It's wonderful in full screen. And you can take a closer look at this body of work. I'd like to extend a special thank you to Marietta again, our curator, for her work in bringing visibility to the issues of gender-based violence and the destruction of our environment. And thank you to the panelists, to Lourdes, to Jimena, Mariana, Dorothy. Thank you so much for contributing your voice, your expertise to this global movement. And we really hope that you'll join us for future events. There's many more, right, Marietta and Davida? That'll be posted. And shared with you. So please sign up on our newsletter. The link is also in the chat. And really, we hope you'll consider making a donation, because all of this was really done in the middle of the night and in between things. So, you know, we've actually shared our donation link as well in the chat. So please help us to continue this 44 years of work and legacy of public art and art activism in Los Angeles and international. So thank you again, everyone, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ciao. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Thank
Bye.
you. My pleasure. My honor.